The door. Now listen to me. Call the person that was coming to get you. Tell them they don't need to come. All right? Yes. Okay? So go ahead and call them. I'm going to take you to jail, and I'm going to impound the car.
Before that, she needs to go to...
No.
But I can't call them if you don't open the door.
Why can't you?
Because I will not put my...
Use your phone. It's in your lap right there.
I just don't want to put my hands down. I'm really sorry.
You're just really strong.
No. I've just seen way too many videos of problems.
But you're not black. Remember, we only kill black people. Yeah, we only kill black people, right? All the videos you've seen, have you seen any white people get killed? You have.
Umbrella. She's up. Whole nother level of shit.
What is good, my people? We are live, back again with another episode of The Forecast. Now, first and foremost, I want to say down to the people in Houston, I hope everybody is okay. Everybody who's looking for loved ones who can't find them, I hope they're okay. And I hope they get in contact with you soon. People's homes have been destroyed and all of that.
This storm intensified quickly, making landfall overnight.
This whole front area was grass earlier. Now we've got about 2 feet of water.
Behind me, you can see, wow, this is one of the major highways in Houston.
The house is flooding, and it's rising way too fast.
I just was in such denial. I didn't put anything up. I didn't grab anything.
An alarming situation is playing out right now in Crosby, Texas. Explosions and smoke at a flooded chemical plant.
The situation they warned that might happen is happening. You have the firefighters getting out their air canisters and their masks.
The weather in Beaumont has been deteriorating all day long.
We were so happy, God had to answer our prayers.
You can see these large helicopters that have been plucking people out of the sky. We have rafts here for first responders that will go neighborhood to neighborhood.
I'm just ready to get home to my baby.
We couldn't find him, and once our dive team got there, it was too treacherous to go under and look for him.
He said the van was bobbing in the water. That's how deep it was, and he kept yelling at the kids. He can hear the kids screaming and crying, trying to get out of the van.
4 mega shelters are operating. 3 in Houston, 1 in Dallas.
I was like, if we can't get out, we have to figure out a way. I wasn't gonna give up on my son. I was crying hysterically. I thought I was gonna die.
I'm just very thankful that we're here safe.
I've lost my home, and I'm thankful my children are safe. It's just, I have nowhere to go.
Good to see you. Thank you very much. Good to see you. We're signing a lot of documents now to get money into your... What document? 7.9 billion.
But it looks like round about 100,000 affected homes. That's a big number.
All my assets in my house, all gone for no insurance.
I left the garage full of stuff. I keep thinking, what's in there?
Just to watch all your stuff being kind of floating away, pretty much, our entire lives.
We just passed the $15 million mark. I've said it so many times before, but I think the worst times bring out the best in people.
Whatever we can do to help these people in a time of need, that's what we're going to do.
And, even some people come back home and there's a goddamn alligator in their fucking house because everything flooded out. Now, even this is an example of why our people, black people, need to start waking up and taking control of our own situations, our own lands, our own everything. All this stuff is happening, and we're going to start experiencing more devastating natural disasters the more that they take oil and take natural resources out of the ground. Now, a lot of people have been talking about Joel Osteen and how this tragedy has exposed him and people like him as the frauds that they are.
Uh-oh, after getting shamed into letting people into his church, Joel Osteen went to be with the people who he locked out of his church.
Oh, good old Joel.
You know what I'm saying?
Gonna show his pearly whites, those pores that he let into his stadium.
Yeah, and somebody noticed how nervous he looked before the interview started.
He's like, He's looking around like, are they stealing stuff? He's looking around like, oh, my beautiful church.
He's like, goddamn, I've never seen this many black people in my church, goddamn. What's going on here? She look like an NBA game. What's going on? I'm nervous.
He's rocking side to side, like, yeah.
He's like, hey, listen, guys, we don't have any hot sauce. Sorry.
Because he's always on the podium far away from people.
Yeah, now he's like in very close contact.
Like, yeah. Come close, take those envelopes, though.
People are coming in by the school bus loads tonight.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about
Lots of bus loads. They won't stop coming.
Yeah.
Just endless.
They just keep coming, and
every bus, each one is poorer and poorer. I don't know how to handle it.
They keep asking me for chicken. I don't have any.
We're just getting started, taking whatever the city asks us to take in, and we feel blessed to be here to help these people, kind-hearted, great people, and this is what it's all about. It's one thing to talk. I talk a lot, but you know what? I love to be able to show it like this.
Yeah. I bet you caught your ass out there. Now you want to show it like this.
We got chains on the door, like stay out.
Yo.
I'm taking 9,000 plus people tonight.
He heard that number, he was like, oh, 9,000, my God.
She's like, yo.
He's like, I bought 80 cots. Like, what the
Is this going to be another temporary spot? When you're talking about being in the long haul, how long is that?
Well, I hope this is temporary because we don't have proper showers and food and dormant.
He's like, listen, y'all niggas can't stay here. Like, this is my church. This ain't your house.
This nigga about to call 9,000 Ubers.
He said there's no showers.
Yeah.
He's like, do you smell them? They stink.
Yeah.
What is your hope for people? Is this going to be another temporary spot? When you're talking about...
You see, he's that little grimace, like, ah. It's like you got relatives staying with you, like, you know what? I miss my flight. I'm staying another week. You're like, I love you, auntie, but you got to get the out of here.
I know with Alicia last time in 2001 when we housed 3,000, we had to just work with people and hotels and different things to get these people somewhere to go on with their life. But
Yo, my
man.
man.
Look outside, like, oh, the sun's out, so I guess y'all can listen.
Go, yo.
They're gonna dry out eventually.
Yo, water's drying up already. Y'all niggas got to go.
He said hotels. He's like, yes, we can get y'all the out of here.
Out of here, B.
I mean, he got money to put everyone in hotels, right?
He definitely does.
He could put all of Houston in a hotel.
Yep.
Why don't he just do that? Because he likes to put his money on his bed and roll around naked.
That's right. Come on, let's be real. I'm Joel Osteen, and I love my paper.
It's like the Bible says, first you must secure the bag.
Now, even though most younger people, regardless of race or gender in America, have been moving away from religion more and more, but this brings up an issue that we really need to address in the black community, and that is religion. Now, even though it's more so with the older generation, I have this discussion with my mom all the time. And to a degree, I understand where they're coming from, because in their generation, the church was somewhat a place of a safe haven for them. They can rely on the church to help the community. But in this day and age, the church is not helping anybody. In fact, the church, in my opinion, is hurting our community. Now, I'm not the type of person who wants to change your beliefs or destroy whatever you believe in, because whatever you believe in, that's your business. I don't really care. But in my opinion, I think that religion is nothing but poison that is destroying our community from within. Two of the most biggest divisions that we have in the black community is between gender and religious ideals and religious beliefs. To me, we have to be sick to be following something that institutes the destruction of our people. And especially with black Americans. Most black American people are Christians, which to me is funny because if you go to a random church on any given Sunday and you ask most of the black people there if they've ever read the Bible, front to back, completely, most of them will tell you no. And to me, once black people start reading this book, they would find out how dangerous it could be once you start taking it beyond what it is. The Bible is a book of murder, betrayal, deception, glory. But at the end of the day, it is a book. When you talk about events like the Passover, which is a story about how God came down and killed Egyptian babies, Egyptian children, every firstborn, every pet, because these Hebrews were enslaved by the Egyptians, even though it's no proof that they were ever enslaved, beyond the Bible, of course. But when the Greeks came down or when the Romans came down and started murdering them by the masses. And the Romans were even the ones who killed Jesus. Yet God never laid a finger on them. How crazy is that? This book literally curses everybody with melanin in their skin. When our ancestors were being hung and tortured for reading a science book or a math book, they were given the Bible and forced to read it. That's the only time that they got off from working, was being able to go to church. And still, to this day, our people run to this book, run to churches, looking for shelter, looking for safe haven. To me, that is severe Stockholm Syndrome, especially in the information age that we live in today with the internet and all the research that we can do and that's available at our fingertips. And in all of these major religions that Black Americans follow, God makes it clear anybody who doesn't follow this God or put this God first, their lands are okay to be conquered. You can make the people slaves, you can take their land, shit, you can rape their women, which was probably just stories of men who protected their lands or conquered other lands, which would be the same as us honoring George Washington that way because he didn't get conquered by the British. Now, even if you still want to believe these stories, that's not my concern. Where my problem comes in is how much of a detriment it is for us to unify and come together. Religion is one of the points where we get stuck on every single time. When people try to talk about solutions, you run back to this same old book, but not everybody's going to come together on this particular book. Even the people who do agree and believe in this book don't agree on the same things about the book. So how can all of us unite on this one thing? But these people really believe that's the only way. When I personally couldn't believe in the ideology that puts one sex over the other. I don't think the male is more important than the female or the female more important than the male. I couldn't follow any doctrine that put one over the other. That would create a divide every single time. When reality and nature shows us that it takes a man and a woman equally to create a family, to create a baby. A man can't have a baby by himself and a woman can't have a baby by himself. So one is not more important than the other. And that is a major problem I have with religion, me personally, and why I couldn't follow a lot of these doctrines. And just the overall way that the church is being used beyond the doctrine. You have politicians coming to black churches every 4 years and the pastor just smiling, letting them on stage. And our people give away our money so easily. I'm not saying, stop giving your money away to anybody, but direct it in the right directions. And I'm not saying that you have to stop being a consumer, but direct your money in the right direction. We have given black churches billions and billions and billions of dollars, yet I don't see any jobs being created. I mean, there are some preachers who are just genuinely good people who are trying to help. And they try to give back to the community. But there are so many that don't. Now, if we was just giving this money strictly to create our own infrastructure, $420 billion would have went a long fucking way by now. Over the last 30 years, we would have been in a different position than we are in today. Now, one area that our ancestors wasn't as successful in is in protection. And especially getting caught up into this Christian belief where you're stuck on the passages that they give you, like turn the other cheek. And all the non-violent passages, they never even really mention the eye for an eye passage. But, of course, the turn your other cheek passage is the one you hear all the time. And, they love to throw Martin Luther King in our faces, but you can't turn the other cheek with a bullet in your head. And a lot of people say if you take away religion, well, what are you going to follow? As if you need a doctrine to tell you how to live your life. Well, how about this? Do unto others as you would have done unto you. That's not religion. Religion is do what I tell you to do or else. But once people start realizing that The power doesn't come from an outside source. It comes from within. Once we realize that, we'll figure out that we can create whatever we want to create. We're in a position where we can create a government the way we want. We can create a society the way we want. We can create religious practices the way that we want, in a way that would be the most successful with all of the knowledge that we have over time. We can take all of the good things and incorporate it. We can leave out all of the bad things that we know would harm us. Once we realize we have the power in our own hands, we'll be able to get rid of this whole divide and conquer mindset that we have overnight, because we'll all be aligned with the one thing that's not imposing on another person's thing. And you can keep your own religious practices if you want. I'm not about destroying people's beliefs, but I am about creating what we need to create to be able to get out of the situation that we are in and be able to empower ourselves. So I want to hear what you got to say.
What was said, and we're going to deal with that. There's been a question about context in reference to the statements that were made. In my opinion, I feel that no matter what context you try to take those comments in, the statements were inexcusable and inappropriate.
But you're not black. Remember, we only kill black people. Yeah, we only kill black people, right? All the videos you've seen, have you seen black people get killed? You have.
But those comments have now caused the men and women who are currently working on the street right now today to go out and attempt to regain the public trust that was lost by those comments. There's really no place for these types of comments in law enforcement. Surely not in this department, law enforcement in general. I've known Lieutenant Abbott for a number of years, and I've always perceived him to be an honorable man, but he made a mistake. I don't know what's in his heart, but I certainly know what came out of his mouth, and it's inexcusable, and we have to take appropriate action. The recommendation is to terminate his employment from the Cobb County Police Department. And certainly there is a process that we will have to go through in order to do that, but we are certainly moving forward with that process.
Would you like to hear what I think God would say to the churches in America? He'd say, you boast that you serve me, but in truth you serve your own ego.
Tradition of the black church is to preach the gospel of Jesus Christ.
Churches have bills to pay, and the only way to take care of this is to make certain that members of that congregation are giving properly.
To become a megachurch pastor, you have to keep the majority of the money that you collect, and they should be happy about it.
These ministers are prosperous because of this congregation, knowing all along that there are barriers that are going to prevent members of that congregation from achieving the same thing.
And it's not just the money they make, it's the way they're treated in the church. You can't even see them.
You can't even talk to them.
If the feds take a closer look, they will begin to see that the majority of that money is in his control.
And that means you don't have to ever report anything to anybody.
It's beyond scrutiny because churches aren't required to file tax returns.
A minister who does not say anything about anybody or any cause and just simply preach a gospel that he is not willing to put into action is a minister who's not worth having.
After you spend your time and your years screaming and shouting in church, praying and praying and praying, and you are not moving into another direction, is something wrong with you or something wrong with the ministry that you are a part of?
There was something in the message of Christianity. There was something in the religion of the oppressors that they saw that was deeper than even the oppressor's presentation of that. I mean, for example, the slaves had this saying that there must be another Bible within that Bible.
Black people did not assume the Christianity of their oppressors. The Christianity that black people assumed was a Christianity that they created out of the interaction with the Christianity that was presented to them and the Christianity that they re-evaluated and reconfigured to fit their needs.
Charleston, South Carolina. In 1815, the enslaved black population outnumbered the free white population by more than 2 to 1. On Sunday mornings, black people listened quietly to pro-slavery sermons in the sanctuaries of the city's white churches. On the surface, the Africans seemed to accept these preachments without open confrontation. But on weeknights and Sunday evenings, it was a different story. During slavery, secret meetings served as a place where black women and men could worship God in the way that they saw fit. Their songs recalled stories from the Bible, triumphs of the weak over the mighty. Ceremonially, they traveled through time, casting themselves as God's chosen people of centuries past. At the heart of this experience was the ring shout, the sacred ritual in which worshipers shift their feet and move their bodies in a circle to symbolize the connection between past, present, and future. Over time, the meeting places came to be known as praise houses. The praise house family functioned as the secret religious societies had in Africa. Members were initiated in after months of reporting their dreams and going into the woods at night to seek God. It was a bond that was as strong as the bonds of one's birth family.
I volunteered to go to church. They wanted to see if they would let blacks into the church because blacks wasn't allowed. They said it was private property. Blacks was not allowed. So we had made arrangement to go to church that morning. So as we walked up there, some of the members had their hands out, like, this is private property. You can't come in here. You can't go to this church. You got to turn around. So we say we want to worship God. We want to go to church and we want to worship God. They say, well, this is private property. By that time, the police came. They say, well, if you don't get off of this property, we're taking you to jail. We didn't move. They got us, led us to the paddy wagon, and when we got there, they had dogs in there.
I think here at First United Methodist Church, we need to be forgiven. We need to say we are sorry. We need to experience forgiveness. And we need to experience the unconditional love that some of you have shown us just by being here tonight. And we need to show you the unconditional love that we didn't 40 years ago. But we need to do it tonight. I want to say to Barbara, to Audrey, to Janice, and really to the community, on behalf of our church, we want to say to you today, we're so sorry that you experienced pain and rejection here, that you were turned away, that you were arrested. We're sorry that we did not welcome you and the Christ in you, and we did not display Christ in us. We regret our actions. We regret the hurt that we caused you. We ask your forgiveness. We welcome you as the sisters in Christ and as friends. By the grace of God, we welcome you. God bless you. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry, Audrey. God bless you. Bless you, Barbara. Thank you.
Direct from our newsroom in Washington, in color, this is the CBS Evening News with Walter Cronkite and Russ Hodge in Memphis, Tennessee, Dan Rather in New York, Bernard Kalb in Saigon, Marvin Kalb in Wellington, New Zealand, and Bert Quint in Quezon, South Vietnam.
Good evening. Dr. Martin Luther King, the apostle of nonviolence in the civil rights movement, has been shot to death in Memphis, Tennessee. Police have issued an all-points bulletin for a well-dressed young white man seen running from the scene. Officers also reportedly chased and fired on a radio-equipped car containing 2 white men. Dr. King was standing on the balcony of a second-floor hotel room tonight when, according to a companion, a shot was fired from across the street. In the friend's words, the bullet exploded in his face. Police, who have been keeping a close watch over the Nobel Peace Prize winner because of Memphis' turbulent racial situation, were on the scene almost immediately. They rushed the 39-year-old Negro leader to a hospital where he died of a bullet wound in the neck. Police said they found a high-powered hunting rifle about a block from the hotel, but it was not immediately identified as the murder weapon. Mayor Henry Loeb has reinstated the dusk-to-dawn curfew he imposed on the city last week when a march led by Dr. King erupted in violence. Governor Buford Ellington has called out 4,000 National Guardsmen. And police report that the murder has touched off sporadic acts of violence in a Negro section of the city. In a nationwide television address, President Johnson expressed the nation's shock.
America is shocked and saddened by the brutal slaying tonight of Dr. Martin Luther King. I ask every citizen to reject the blind violence that has struck Dr. King, who lived by nonviolence.
Dr. King had returned to Memphis only yesterday, determined to prove that he could lead a peaceful mass march in support of striking sanitation workers, most of whom are Negroes. Dr. King had this to say last night about the situation in Memphis.
Maybe I could understand the denial of certain basic First Amendment privileges because they haven't committed themselves to that over there. But somewhere I read of the freedom of assembly. Somewhere I read of the freedom of speech. Somewhere I read of the freedom of press. Somewhere I read that the greatness of America is the right to protest for right.
There was shock in Harlem tonight when word of Dr. King's murder reached the nation's largest Negro community. Men, women, and children poured into the streets. They appeared dazed. Many were crying. A young Negro said, Dr. King didn't really have to go back to Memphis. Maybe he wanted to prove something.
All right, and we back on the forecast. Now, another problem that we have to talk about in the black community that is hurting us is the single-parent homes. Now, before we get into it, I gotta say this. For all the people who love throwing out these biased and skewed statistics, now all these people that would say, well, there's 70-something% black single mothers. That does not mean the kid does not have a father. It doesn't even mean that the mother and father aren't living together in a healthy, happy home. It only means that they're not married. There could be a couple that is so non-religious that they wouldn't get married, or they don't believe in marriage, or they don't support the laws around marriage in America today. But they have a happy, healthy relationship, and they're able to raise a happy, healthy child, as opposed to a married couple where the father rapes the daughter for years.
More than 14,000 people have demanded the impeachment of a Montana judge who sentenced a 40-year-old man to just 60 days in jail for repeatedly and incestuously raping a 12-year-old girl. Prosecutors asked District Judge John McKeon to sentence the man to 100 years in prison with 75 years suspended. Instead, the judge handed down a measly 60-day jail term with credit for 17 already served on top of a fully suspended 30-year prison sentence. An online petition calling for McKeon's impeachment sprung up immediately after the sentencing last week. By Tuesday afternoon, more than 14,600 people signed it, just about 400 signatures shy of its 15,000 name goal.
A Glasgow man who admitted he raped a 12-year-old girl will not spend a single day in prison. 40-year-old Martin Joseph Blake sentenced Wednesday in Valley County District Court to 30 years to the Montana State Prison, with all of that time suspended. Blake was ordered by Judge John McKeon to spend 43 days in jail, as well as complete sex offender treatment. But that's not the sentence recommended by the prosecutor, Dylan Jensen. In the plea agreement entered early in July, Jensen agreed to 100 years to the state prison with 75 years suspended.
40-year-old Martin Blake admitted he raped the girl and agreed to a 25-year prison sentence in a plea agreement with prosecutors. But Judge McKeon says a sex offender treatment provider determined Blake would benefit from community treatment. The judge also wrote in his statement to us today that prosecutors did not dispute the evidence offered by the expert. McKeon added that the victim's mother and grandmother testified in Blake's defense and said he did not deserve to spend years behind bars. At his sentencing, the judge called the sentence quite restrictive and quite rigorous.
Today, outrage is growing over the probationary sentence given to a Glasgow man who admitted he raped a 12-year-old girl. More than 2,500 people have signed a petition that went up just last night on change.org calling for the impeachment of Judge John McKeon. Anger stemming from McKeon's decision not to sentence 40-year-old Martin Blake to any time in prison for raping that child. Blake was sentenced to 30 years to the Montana State Prison with all of that time suspended. Petitioners say McKeon failed the community by letting Blake go free. McKeon is set to retire at the end of November.
And the mom even talking about forgiveness because they have other kids and he needs to influence his other children. That's sick. I would rather take the healthy, unmarried couple than the married, sick couple. But there are too many fatherless homes and even motherless homes. And we can get into the history of why all of this is going on, and we should, because that would solve a lot of the problems by going to the roots. But as a black man, I gotta express some of the problems that we are facing today. And this is not just a black problem, it's an American problem. But as a black man in America, there is tons of reasons why I would hesitate to marry or have children with a woman. And I'm not coming at it from a perspective of, well, women don't choose nice guys finish last. And brothers, if you're one of those people who say nice guys finish last, the truth is, it's confidence. You just don't have enough confidence to go for what you want to go for. And women are attracted to confidence. But as a black man who is responsible, who goes to work every day, who take care of whatever I'm supposed to take care of, there are plenty of things that scare you away from wanting to get married and have children in today's age. And the thing that women need to understand is not only nature that gives you the power of reproduction, you have the power of reproduction in the law. Even when it comes to getting pregnant, we both have the ability to say, no, I don't want to have sex. We both have the ability to maintain abstinence. And women say, if you don't want to have a baby, keep it in your pants. Which is no different than a man saying, if you don't want to get pregnant, keep your legs closed. It's the same thing. But if we do both decide to have consensual intercourse, the power of balance starts to favor you a whole lot. Because when it comes to protection, men have one form of protection. And fellas, wear a condom every single time. Destroy your sperm, because the courts don't give a fuck about anything. In America, a woman can steal your sperm, and you are responsible for whatever happens. You are responsible for every drop of sperm that leaves your body. So destroy all your sperm and always wear a condom. But women have 12 forms of birth control, and many of them are more effective than condoms are. And both the man and the woman should be wearing protection. Condoms are not protection for women, they're for men. And women should have their own form of protection if you're not trying to have a baby. But even then, of course, protection is not 100%. But even then, women have more options. Men have no more options. We're out of options at this point. Women can go to the store and get a plan B and not get pregnant. But even if it gets past that stage, women still have the ability to get an abortion in America today. Whether you agree with it or not, that's a whole nother debate. That's a whole nother topic. But as of right now, women still have the ability to get an abortion. And even if you decide to carry on with the birth, women have the ability to give it away for adoption. Men do not have that choice. And women will not be responsible. Now, here's the thing. Even if we have a baby totally consensual, and we both agree on it, but it just doesn't work out. Me as a man, I'm in a bad situation, and most women say, well, that's no excuse, just go to court and try to get visitation. But most courts only worry about child support, and they don't enforce visitation. Because even if the mother decides not to give you visitation of your own kid, what are they going to do? Are they going to put her in jail? No, they're not. And the state doesn't care because their goal is just to make money off of all of this tragedy. And your answer is put yourself on child support to try to get visitation with your children. You should definitely support your children, but I'm not in favor of supporting the damn state off of my children's money. But I have seen so many men who take this advice and put themselves on child support and try to go to court for their children's custody and for visitation of their children. And while the courts are getting better over time slowly, I have seen so many men get screwed in court, so I don't even know how good that option is. I've seen even men who win visitation and the mother still disobeys what the court says and the court does nothing. I've seen men who lose everything trying to get custody of their children and still lose. If the mother isn't like a crackhead or some kind of criminal, it is a steep uphill climb for a man. And if you get the wrong woman pregnant, no matter what you do for life, you will be at the mercy of her. If you somehow make a success of yourself one day, she can come and take it all away from you if you get involved with the wrong person. There are so many dangers that women don't even pay attention to or don't hear men's concern about. And I'm not blaming all of this on black women. Black women don't create policy. Black women didn't create the society that we live in, especially in America. But we as black men and black women both share responsibility in the issues in our community and fixing those issues in our community. Because from here, we have no other choice but to fix the issues in our community ourselves. And it's things that both black men and black women can do. I think that no man or woman should have kids before 30. It'll give you a chance to establish your career, to travel the world, to gain experience, to get to know yourself, to know what you like and what you don't like so you can pick an appropriate partner. And it's no rush. I mean, think about it. Even if you start having sex at 13 or 14 and you wait until you're 30, that's only like 16 or 17 years of experience. And most people are living to 80 or 90. So that'll be 60 or 70 years with one person compared to having a varied experience for 16 years. And I think you should be with somebody for at least 5 years before having a baby with somebody. I mean, at least living together for 3 years. That first year will be great, you know. You'll be loving living with each other. By that second year, those little things that they do that annoy you, you start to kind of stand out. By that third year, you probably start hating each other. If you can be together for 5 years, living together, especially for 3 years, you're probably going to be able to be together for 18 to 21 years to raise a child together. And you don't have to just sit there and wait for 5 years or 3 years to be up. You can go out and have experiences together. You can go out and do all the things that you won't be able to do once you have the kids. You can do those things then. And then once you have the kid, you can do things as a family. But most of all, we got to stop pointing the finger at each other. We got to be better than that. We're not going to get anywhere saying, well, it's black women's fault or saying, well, it's black men's fault. It doesn't matter whose fault it is at this point. Right now, we got to figure out how the hell we're going to fix it. How the hell we're going to rebuild our family structure, because those are our children's first teachers. We are the only ones who are going to teach our history. The mother and the father is the one who instills the mindset in the child, especially if you do it right. You don't want the American education system instilling a mindset in your children. You don't want the TV instilling a mindset in your children. As parents, you got to instill that mindset. into your children. But first, you got to learn that mindset yourself. Education starts in the home, and that's why I think this is an important subject that we need to talk about. So, I want to hear what you got to say about it.
I think death would be easier than a divorce.
It's very frustrating to have gone for help and then come out with your family destroyed.
We have serious problems in our family law court system.
Getting divorced is far from easy.
Litigation lasted for over a year.
I was married only 4 months, and my divorce has lasted over 6.5 years.
Close to 8 years.
8 years.
Why is divorce so difficult?
People can get as much justice as they can afford. Most people cannot afford any justice at all.
What's wrong with that? This is a business.
The more you charge, the more people are willing to pay.
They didn't give me a lawyer. Pay this $11,000 or go to jail. It really got to the end of the line for me.
I said to the litigants, I want you to know, after 2 hours, we will have spent more than most people in this courthouse make in a year.
Your home, your valuables are all going to be sold to pay the lawyers and people like me.
Even though I was acquitted, he still made a decision to take my son away from me. His birthday was last week, and I didn't get to see him.
What you have is a tinderbox, and the lawyers are throwing gasoline on that fire.
The system is designed to create conflict.
I received a phone call for another $25,000. He'd be able to give us what we wanted. Extortion?
Family court results in more violence than any other area of law.
Deaths, suicide, murder.
No jury, just the one biased judge.
The judge says, even if you win, you have to pay.
The whole thing is just insane.
Follow the money.
Can I see God in my son? Can I see God in my son? Can I hold it? I can't hold it.
Leave him around. I just asked you to go ahead and leave.
You told me that you didn't care. You didn't care when that shit, remember?
I just said bye. You said leave. You said you was leaving.
Right, but I can't
you
hold my son.
Come on, yo. You said bye.
I can't hold my son. Shit went bad that quick. I really can't hold my son.
You leaving, ain't you?
Because of you. Your attitude. You did it.
Okay, you can go ahead.
You said some off the wall shit. I can't hold my son.
I said don't touch him. Don't pick him up. Don't worry about him.
Yeah, you said don't touch him. Don't pick him up. Don't worry about him. Yeah, you said it wasn't just my friend. You're not my girl.
I don't give a fuck. I said don't touch him. Don't worry about him. Why did you do it on your phone?
What they got to do with anything?
Your phone with.
What they got to do with anything?
I just said it.
All right, bet. What? Okay, they give him a kiss.
It's happening to men across Michigan. They are being forced to pay child support as dads by default.
Doesn't matter. If the men can prove the children are not theirs, Michigan law makes them pay anyway.
But tonight, 7 Action News reporter Kim Russell tells us that may be about to change.
Most people think you either have to adopt or conceive a baby to become legally responsible for a child. Under Michigan law, that is simply not how it works.
I was the father by default.
These 4 men came to the 7 Action News studios to raise awareness. You could become dad by default. There are a couple ways it happens. Pastor Edward Mack says his previous wife had 3 children. He loved them as his own. Then he realized 2 of them were not biologically his.
You must have been so heartbroken.
Kim, it was a hurting thing. I don't even really want to talk about it because it brings tears to my eyes. Sorry for getting teary-eyed.
Pastor Mack says the betrayal led to divorce. He was shocked when the judge told him because he was married, he became dad by default. He had to pay support for another man's children.
Let her pay for him. Let her get the man she laid down with to pay for him. He goes free.
I never even slept with her. I got a lawsuit when I was young, and she basically just said, that's the money I'm gonna get, and she got it.
Reginald Whitlow, Anthony Sims, and Carnell Alexander have similar stories. They say women named them out of nowhere. In 2014, 7 Action News told Carnell's story and found the mother. She said she was told in order to get welfare benefits, she needed to name a father. She knew he wasn't the dad, but wrote down his name anyway.
Everything is my fault that I put him through.
Do you think that he should have to pay this money?
No, he shouldn't have to pay it at all.
Then these men missed paternity hearings because they were either sick or did not receive notice. Carnell had proof. He was in prison when a process server claimed he was served at a house in Highland Park. When they didn't show up at court, a judge ruled them dads by default. They then missed their chance to challenge it with DNA evidence by the court deadline because they couldn't find the women and children.
They wouldn't give me her address because it was confidential.
These men all eventually got DNA tests backing their stories. Too late.
Oftentimes it doesn't make a difference.
Representative Jim Runstead says those DNA tests should make a difference. The Republican from White Lake says he heard the story of Carnell Alexander on 7 Action News and decided to take action. He says this year he hopes to pass legislation that would protect men from being forced to pay for another man's children. Plus, women and process servers who lie should face stiff legal consequences.
This is wrong. Deceiving and lying and obligating people who are not supposed to be obligated to pay bills is wrong.
These men don't just want the law changed to protect others, they want compensation.
I'm getting garnished, I'm getting thrown in jail, I'm getting felony charges.
You have taken our lives. Change that law.
Representative Runstead says he has written 5 draft bills that aim to prevent such fraud, protecting both men and children. He says he plans to introduce them within the next month.
Well, a Houston father is facing 180 days in jail for overpaying his child support and over-visiting his 11-year-old son. His attorney and a community activist are now demanding answers. Randy Wallace joins us live with a story you'll see only on Fox. Randy?
Don, we all expect to see judges throw the book at fathers who fail to pay child support. But a father who says he's been doing the right thing now has an arrest warrant against him.
It's my responsibility to take care of it. You know, I brought him in this world. I have to.
Clifford Hall says he's more than happy to pay child support for his 11-year-old son.
I'm his father. You know, it's my responsibility to take care of it.
But Hall says when the amount of child support was modified, no one told him.
And I discovered that for some reason his employer was withholding a large amount some weeks, a small amount some weeks, zero amount some weeks.
And I didn't want to go to jail, basically.
So Hall quickly paid almost $3 grand in back child support. When Hall and his ex-wife were in Judge Lisa Millard's court last November, he owed nothing.
Opposing counsel testified twice that he's all paid up.
But the attorney representing the child's mother wanted Hall to pay her $3 grand in attorney fees, and Judge Millard agreed. Court documents also reveal Hall wasn't following the court's scheduled times to pick up his son, another modification he says he knew nothing about.
The judge ended up sentencing him to 6 months in jail.
When she said, remand you to the Harris County Jail for 180 days, my mouth just dropped.
This entire situation is shocking to me. I've never seen one like this.
Community activist Cornell X wants the state's judicial board to investigate.
The court failed the child. The court failed Mr. Hall. The system broke down.
I can't be there for my son in jail. I can't pay child support in jail. You know, this is not in the best interest of the child.
Judge Lisa Millard says Hall walked out of court after he was found in contempt, which she says is a big no-no. Judge Millard also points out Hall's attorney could have filed a motion for reconsideration. She says that would have allowed her to hear both sides again and reevaluate the situation. Hall's attorney is now working on an appeal, and in a few days, Hall plans to turn himself in, and Don will, of course, keep everybody posted on how this plays out.
It really is a strange situation.
Very, very, very strange. I mean, it kind of shows that sometimes these things can be changed, modified. Maybe one parent doesn't know, but it's very confusing, and you've got to wonder how this man could go to jail for this.
Because I need answers. As custodial parent, I'm supposed to know exactly what's what.
Kim, can I leave now?
Can you please tell me where you cut my children's hair?
I gave my kids a haircut.
You had no authority. Did you come?
Do you have my kids behind us?
Did you consult with me?
Kim, let me peel off.
Did you consult with me?
Can I leave now?
Let's be a man for once.
Can I leave?
Did you consult with me? Ma, can you get the police because... Yeah, he's taking my photo because he won't tell me exactly what happened. He has no right to do that. I asked you a simple question.
So your mom going to get the police?
I don't know. I'm asking you a question. Where did you do this? Earl, they don't
Kim, you are really making the kids nervous.
Earl, I know my own children ever since. Okay?
Ever since what?
I know my children.
Ever since what?
Since you abandoned them.
I abandoned
know them, okay?
Oh, I thought I left you.
No, I'm recording it too, just to make sure that we're even, Steven, okay?
Yeah, I don't care
That's
about
no
that.
problem.
Oh, don't scratch the car.
Oh, no, scratch the car. Go ahead, do whatever you want to do.
Come on, let me hold the train.
No, that's their train.
I got the train until...
Okay, hold on. No, you hold on to that train. Don't let him take that away from you. Nope.
Don't let him put the train on the car, please,
Then
Kim.
you need to tell me exactly what happened.
Oh, see, you got the boys crying.
Well, you took his train.
Don't scratch the
I
car.
didn't take it.
Don't scratch
Answer
the car.
the question.
Get daddy a kiss. Get daddy a
Answer
kiss.
the question.
Look. Can I pick him up, Kim?
Put him down.
Can I pick the
You're
kid
over
up?
the time.
Let me pick
You're
the
over
kid.
the time.
So I can't pick the kids up?
Let go. Would you tell me what you did?
So I can't pick the kids
Can you
up?
tell me what you did?
They got a haircut, Kim.
Where? Where, Earl? You put a shaver to their head. How dare you do that?
You finished? And your mom is going to get the police, huh? Kim, would you please have them get the train off the car?
Answer the question.
I'm going to take the train from them. Okay,
Take them and then they'll be bowling and it's all you. That's it.
They can't have the train on the car.
Well, then
Now,
you need to answer the
then
question.
why don't you back up from the car
You
then?
need to answer the question.
Back up from the car.
They're going to remember you as an image of taking this away.
Then back up from the car, Kim.
Then answer my question, please.
Back up from the car.
Answer my question.
Kim, you shouldn't be doing this in front of kids.
Would you please tell me? You're doing it, Earl. Who gave you the right to do that? Who gave you the right?
Oh, I wish you let me leave, Kim.
Who gave you the right? You were over an hour and a half late. Go ahead, get your train, sweetie. Who gave you the right to shave their head?
What? Don't I pay child support? And don't they my kids too?
Child support has nothing to do. You are non-custodial with visitation. You have no rights whatsoever to do anything like this without consulting with me first.
All right, and we back on the forecast. And all of this stuff really goes back to what we teach in our children. Whatever it is that we are going to instill into our children, whatever ideology that they have, whatever education that we give them. And all of that is going to directly affect the life that they live. And we can make the sacrifice to teach them how to be prosperous and set them up in a position to do just that. Or we can keep continuing on the path that we are on and see whatever America has next for them. We can contribute to destroy our community from within, or we can build our community up and learn how to protect it from the outside forces. It's up to us. We have the ability to change our fortune. We have the ability to build and create whatever we want. We can start from scratch. But as always, man, we have got to start standing for something, or we're going to keep falling for anything.